And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. Rassie Erasmus has officially named his final 23 of the year, and the 7-1 split is back, as we thought, given the fact that it is a very depleted squad. And as a result, the Springboks are forced to deploy the new squad, the 7-1 split. Kobus Reinach, the only backline player on the bench. Kwagga Smith will potentially have to cover some of those positions as well. But let's go through the line, shall we? In the number 1 jersey, Gerard Stendekamp starting next to Johan Grobbelaar and Wilco Louw. So the All Bulls front row getting a rare start together in the green and gold. Jean Klein gets a second start of the day, and he's next to Ruan Nokia in the number 5 jersey. Siya Kolisi starts once again as he adds to his 102 caps next to Franco Mostert, who gets named in the number 7 jersey. As expected, Jasper Wiese will continue at the back of the scrum. Morne van den Berg gets a start next to Sasha Fine-Magomazulu. Kanan Moody will start in the number 11 jersey. Ethan Hooker in the number 14 jersey. Interesting to see that they have swapped those jerseys. Definitely something that the Boks are probably trying to look and see how they both do on different wings. For example, you got Andre Estes and your partner Damien Delendi, who will start at outside center. I think he's only started once or twice there in his career, actually, as he gets very close to that 100 mark, his 97th cap on Saturday. Damien Williams is starting at full back. Then off the bench, Bongi Manambi, Zachary Porthan covering Lucid, and Asenate and Tlabakanye getting his first opportunity of the tour. You then got Evan Etzebeth, Marco van Staden, Ben Jason Dixon, and Kwagga Smith all on the bench. Kobus Reinach in the number 23 jersey will have to be doing a lot of potential covering. And this is all due to the fact that the Boks are just down to their bare bones, really, when it comes to the squad itself. So what do you think of the squad? Let me know down in the comments below, because this is what it looks like. And I think it's what we expected, really. I mean, there's a couple of selections. For example, I mean, I went with a different front row. Then going with sort of the Bulls one. Ruan Nokia, I think starting is not wouldn't say necessarily a surprise, but Franco Mostert at 7, him versus Ben Jason Dixon. The rest of the team were going to be pretty straightforward, to be perfectly honest, because there's just not a lot of other ways we could have formulated this side. There's not a lot of other options within the squad. Even in the squad at the moment, from my understanding, the only person not actually involved is Ntuthuko Mchunu. Unless somebody else has joined, the training squad, this is just basically what's left. And if we go look at some of the stats, for example, the good news is there's still plenty of experience. So Kobus Reinach, by the way, will make his 50th appearance for the Boks, but off the bench for the second time in a row. We're seeing that. And he needs 5 points to get to 100 points in the green and gold. It'll be a nice way to sort of bring up his 50th. Evan Etzebeth will extend his Springbok record as the most cap player to 141 caps. This is Damien Williams' 49th cap, by the way, so he will get that 50 cap next year. Damien Delendi will need only 2 after this weekend to get to that big 100. In terms of our record against Wales, we've only lost 5 of our 24 matches away from home, going back to 1994. The last time we lost to Wales was in Cardiff. In Cardiff was in 2018. And in terms of the experience that we've got, the total test caps in the Springbok starting lineup is 525. The average caps per player in the back line is 32. In the forwards, 38. Players on the bench, 47. So it's a very experienced bench, with the exception of, a Zach Porthan, Asenate Tlabakanye, and Kwagga Smith. Not Kwagga Smith, Ben Jason Dixon, rather. In terms of what Rassie Erasmus had to say about it, he said that we know from the outset that we would lose players from this match due to their club commitments, and we are pleased with the quality of the team we've selected. We've been rotating our players throughout the year, and this group has been together for close to 5 weeks, so many of these combinations are fully settled, while others such as Zachary and Asenate have shown that they are capable of the season, and we are excited that they will receive another opportunity to play. I'd like to thank the provincial unions and clubs who released these players to represent the country this weekend, so we could field a strong side capable of finishing our November tour on a high note. He then actually said, we've used a total of 49 players in test matches this season, which is a testament to the depth we have been developing with an eye on the 2027 Rugby World Cup. So Ntuthuko Mchunu would have been number 50, actually, if he had played. Speaking about Kobus Reinach, though, he said that Kobus is a true team man and he's been a standout player for us this season and over the years. So we are delighted to see him earn this achievement. He's patiently waited for his chances and grabbed every opportunity with both hands. So to see him achieve this at 35 years old makes it even more remarkable feat. And then speaking about the 7-1 split, he said the composition of the bench was a combination of the availability of players we had for this match, but also given how well our pack has performed this season. And we believe it will be a key area on the match. I mean, as Wales, you've got to be really panicking if you look at that kind of bench and the way that they could potentially deploy that. I mean, it is absolutely mental. In terms of what he said to Wales, though, he said, we are expecting them to come out firing and throw everything at us. This is also the last match of the year for both teams, so there's no doubt they'll be give everything to finish this season on a high note and try to improve their world ranking with the Rugby World Cup draw coming next week. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward team with regards to what was left in the reserves, and it's a situation where it's the end of the season. We've kind of ended up with this sort of squad, and we kind of have to just make do really with what we've got. Obviously, this has been it's kind of been designed. There would have been conversations with the unions with regards to players that they have to keep, players they might have available. So, for example, the Bulls, allowed them to keep a Kane Moody, the front row, Ruan Okia and the likes of that. The Sharks, on the other hand, for example, said, well, you can keep Eben, you can keep Sear, you can take Bongi, you can take Instutuko, but we really need Grant Williams back, and we really need Edwin van der Merwe back as well, who already left the squad due to the birth of his child. And then the Boks basically probably just said, well, it's fine, we can probably make do without those sort of players. And then what's quite interesting, I think the most interesting selection for me is Jean Klein, given the fact that he plays for Munster and that they've allowed him to come and play for the Boks this weekend. That was always going to be I think that was quite an interesting situation, because very, very rarely do we see European sides allow players to play outside the international window. That's why, for example, Australia never get to really use Will Skelton because of mandatory rest periods, for example, where the different where we have games outside international windows, for example, your club commitments are governed by the international windows where you sort of play, Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere windows. So it's an interesting one that John Kane has been allowed to play by Munster. And shout out to Munster for allowing that, for letting him go out and play. I mean, it's a very good side. It's a very strong side. I still maintain that I think this game's a bit of a I wouldn't say a disaster, but it's a bit of a frustrating game, given the fact that more so Wales really than us, because Wales have been absolutely gutted by the fact that this is outside the test window. And look, I mean, I suppose, some people are saying, well, they're going to get to expose players and build their depth. We get to build our depth. I wouldn't say there's that many fringe players in this side, to be perfectly honest. If you look at the starting lineup, the only sort of fringe players, inverted commas, these days are Morne van den Berg, Jean Klein hasn't played much. That's more to injury than anything else. Everybody else is pretty settled. I mean, Ethan Hook is pretty settled these days in the Boks squad. Kane Moody's very settled in the Boks squad. On the bench, you got, Asanati, Zachary Porthen, Ben Jason Dixon. Bongi Manami's kind of been phased out. But I don't think we don't suddenly have this 9-10 players who are kind of all on the fringes and not getting opportunities, not playing and haven't been around. So yeah, from that regard, I wouldn't say there's that many fringe players, but it's a good opportunity for these players to get out there and have a hit out and maybe start working towards where we want to be next year. So I'm going to put out a poll, and I want you to go and vote. Do you like the team? Simple yes and no. Do you like the team? Question mark. Yes, no, go and vote. Go and let me know. And if you don't like the team, I mean, first of all, you can only make one change to it, which is into Kunu. But I suppose it's kind of a situation where maybe almost kind of ask, is this game a good idea at the end of the day? And that's obviously the big thing that we need to sort of check. So go to some of the comments and what you guys have got to say over here. So where we go, where we at? Dorian says, it really doesn't seem like this game should be taking place considering the Welsh lineup as well. Yeah, that's what I keep saying during the week. Everybody keeps saying, oh, stop being so negative. In any game the Boks can go play is a good game. And I mean, I agree to a certain degree, but look at the Welsh side. Look at how they've really been gutted by this being outside the window. Look at the Welsh region situation and how they're potentially going down to 3 regions. There's a massive internal fighting, for example. Now these regions who are being told that they might be completely scrapped are having to release their players so that Welsh Rugby Union can make some more money. So there's a lot of issues happening in Welsh Rugby right now. And for that reason, I really think that this game was very unnecessary. For us, it's cool. We get to have another, hit out. I mean, we've got a very small sort of skeleton squad. But for Wales, it's a disaster game. It really is. And really shouldn't be taking place from that point of view. Jaden said Ben Jason should have gotten the 7 jersey for this game. JJ de Villiers says Damon Delende and Esther Hazen, good luck Welsh defense. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty barbaric, isn't it? Gideon says, I'm grateful that we can have this test. Stevie has just been grumpy, calling it useless. No, I've just said, we're playing against a Welsh seaside here. So is that really going to give us that much information, for example? Is that really that important for the Boks? If you look at what this means for Wales rugby, as I said, there's internal fighting with the unions at the moment, with the franchises, the regions. I mean, they go with regions, and they've literally said that some of the regions are going to get sacked off. They're going to potentially go down to 3 regions. So all the regional dragons, the likes of that, are all now fighting for survival. They're trying to prove that they're worthy. They're not having their players taken away from them for a weekend of URC rugby. You've got players making. I mean, I think there's only 3 players in that Welsh 23 with more than 30 caps. Our average caps is about 36 as an average. Their average caps are closer to like 12. So in that regard, what are we facing? What are we playing? Yeah, cool. It's great to have another Bok game, and we're never going to complain on Saturday where we can watch the Boks play. But look at who we're playing against, and look at the situation at Wales. I mean, Wales are bad anyway. To call a spade, they're bad anyway. They're probably in the worst situation they've ever been in, and now this is an even weaker Welsh side, and they're playing against a side which has a World Cup winner in World Cup winners in Jean Klein, Siya Kolisi, Franco Mostert, Jasper Wiese, Kane Moody, Andre Saden, Damon Delende, Damian Willemse, Bongi Manambi, Eben Etzebeth, Marco van Staden, Kwaka Smith, Kobus Reinach. There's 13 World Cup winners in the squad. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 4 players in the starting line with less than 10 caps for the Boks. And I think only about 5 or 6 with less than 20 caps for the Boks. If you look at the Welsh side, there's only 2 players with more than 30 caps in the starting 15. So that's my main point. It's not about the fact that we've got the squad, it's who we're playing against. Genuinely, if we were to play against a Prem side, for example, an Irish club side, it would probably be a more competitive match. Eric says, I remember Sos running through Wales to score a great try last year. He likes playing with them. True. Very, very true. Evan says, will be good to see how Bongi and Mostert perform. No excuses for a poor outing. And Evan says, starting Mostert over Ben Jason Dixon makes you wonder if this might be a final outing. I suppose it depends on how he plays. I think they've spoken about Franco Mostert and said that he's still very much in the plans. But I suppose he is one of the older players, and it's always kind of coming towards the end when you kind of get to that age, unless you like a Kobus Reinach who keeps banging down that door week in, week out. Contender says, I am worried about the Arsenal pick. Nothing against him as a player, but with the Dopey scandal, I'm hoping the World Rugby won't give us creep with a points deduction. No, that doesn't happen. Doesn't work like that. I don't know where a lot of people have been saying that. It just doesn't work like that. He doesn't have a ban right now. He is allowed to play. Like from World Rugby standards, Dopey standards, anything, he is allowed to play. He's allowed to play until he's not. If for example it was a multiple different failure, for example, and different sort of circumstances, he would have an interim ban and he'd not be allowed to play. So there will not be any points deductions. There will not be any retrospective action on any team that fields him whilst he is eligible to play. When Apiro Diante, for example, failed that test, he had an interim ban. He was not allowed to play rugby until the hearing, etc. had played. This is a different scenario, so there's no worry about that as well. Eric says, the Bulls' power front row starting doesn't mean that they will not start the next week against BB in Euro Cup. Well, we'll have to wait and see, isn't it? Neil's saying, this is a powerful team. Russia is not taking Wales lightly. Want to beat them for sure. Well, we just have nobody else, to be honest. This is just the team that's in our squad. I'm surprised Tuku Nkunu is not involved, to be honest. To fly him over and then not pick him seems a bit... What's interesting is Zach Porthen's actually made Lucy proper ahead of Tuku Nkunu. I personally would have rested Volker low. Had Asanati start, or Zachary Porthen start at tight head, But that's an interesting scenario. I didn't even know he actually was, designated player at Lucid. Jan says, De Klerk not available. He's just been named in the Bulls squad. And this is what I said last night. Lots of people kept talking about the fact that Sebastian De Klerk was going to start. And I keep saying, but he's not there. We've not been told anything about him even being in Wales. There was no confirmation. So I don't know where that rumor started. I don't know who decided that basically he had left the country and that he was in the box squad. But we got confirmation about an hour ago that the Bull squad got announced that he is in South Africa and he's starting against the Lions this weekend. Hodja Pa's also back in the country. And Toya says, I just wish the combinations were different. Love Master, but give Ben Jason more game time. Why play Wilco and switch Portland's position, leaving Intutuko out? Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm at. I said that I think Wilco Low doesn't need to be involved in this game. I think it was a bit. I think he's played a lot of rugby and was an easy person to be able to leave out and still be able to have everybody in their kind of natural positions. Squirrel Stamp says, people screaming Wales B-side, C-side. I don't think they will be an easy game. I reserve comment on that. I personally do think it'll be quite straightforward unless we play really, really badly. I didn't actually do particularly well with my picks, to be honest. I don't think too many people saw Sia Khaleesi starting. I didn't go with the Bulls prop starting. I didn't go with Franco Master at 11. So I think I might have buckled hardcore when it comes to the league, which I'm a bit upset about, to be perfectly honest. Tammy Gomez says 55-0. Bjorn says, how does Wales be if we can play one prop completely out of position and he's a youngster? Well, in fairness, I think he's got more international caps than what he's potentially scrumming against. If you look at the team that they have announced, they've got lighties on the bench, like really, really lighties on the bench. So yeah, I don't think that's as big of a worry, I suppose, to a certain degree. But that's the thing, because the teams are so completely gutted, that we probably can allow to test Zach Porthan at a loose head in a game like this. So Ricardo says, good team would have maybe switched the front rows. Avoma says, imagine this team putting 100 points on Wales. Let's get some score predictions in. Where is Jean Augustus? He's at Ulster, so he's not going to be released at all. TS says, people have Bafana PTSD about Asanati. No, he is. Yeah, well, fair. As I said, we have seen it this year where they just decide to play somebody who is ineligible, but he is eligible. I think that the Bok management's probably a little bit more on the ball than the Bafana management. And Jacques says, Shoki is not good enough for this team. We have more than enough cover there. I have zero issue with the rest of his choices. We've made do with Sia at 8 and Markov and Start at 8. To say we've got a lot of cover at 8 when considering that we've only had a one out and out 8th man pretty much the entire tour. We've made it work, but I think he's still got a role to play. I would have liked to have seen him in this November series, to be perfectly honest. Dwayne says, I love the combo of Vandenberg and Sasha, one for the future, and very excited to see Sasha playing a full 80 on fly, which is the attacking skill. Dude Nobby says, team to get scrum penalties early on improved last Saturday wasn't a fluke. Malabonga says, this doesn't make sense. Why would Lowe and CS start and Tunu and Dixon bench? And well, yeah. I do think this was a bit of a weird. I do think that Seal will get hooked quite early. I personally think he'll play maybe a half because he has played a lot. Well, I suppose to a certain degree, he's played a lot. He started a lot of rugby, but he does come off. So he does kind of empty the tank, come off at 55 to 60 minutes. So I suppose if you look at his entire game time over the year in terms of minutes on the field, he's probably actually well within the acceptable amount of limits. And again, there's mandatory downtime anyway. So you kind of have to look at the calendar year and kind of see where he's played, where he hasn't played, how much he has played. Tammy Gama, one of our members, and feel free to please consider joining our members club. It is on the app, our members club, and let me know what you think of it. And let me go and join the the members club and support the channel. We've got to try and get to Australia in a couple of years' time, which is going to be an expensive trip. We obviously want to get there and take you guys with us on a camera and go and show you all about what's happening in the World Cup like we did in 2023. So that's our big thing that we're starting to push for at the moment. Robert says, I think they are letting CF finish the tour. Valio says, Centers, Estes, and Dana could be a devastating combination. Well, it's a lot of power in that combination. You have nothing else. King says, every player in that backline has been a centre at some point in their career. It's a very good observation, I suppose, with the exception of Morley van den Berg. But yeah, 10 through to 15 have all played in the centres and all played in the centres for the Boks. Sash gone to centre at some stage for the Boks? No, I don't think so. So all of them have played centre for the Boks at a stage. Sash has played, obviously, inside centre quite a lot, actually, and for the Stormers. Eric said, when will Bulls team be announced? It'll be interesting to see whether Hanekom, Orange, and Pollard are in the team. The Bulls team has been announced. There is no Cameron Hanekom. There is, however, a return for Ulrich Lowe. There is also no Andre Pollard. And he was apparently injured, well, a slight niggle for the game against Ireland, and obviously with that injury he returned home, but he's not been picked this weekend. Your fly-off options are Ambrose Pierre, and Ambrose Pierre. Keegan Johannes. After all that, Keegan Johannes and Willie LaRue's covering 10 really, because they've got Steedman Gans and Cheswell Juster off the bench. It's an interesting Bulls side, but really good to see Albert Lowe back in the mix. Matthew says, I think creating versatility is the idea of this game, trying things which possibly include lack clarity in the system, which is why they would take a gamble on versatility such as the centers. Ricardo reckons that Troki will be in the World Cup side. He's running out of time if he's going to get there. Matthew says 9 out of 10 is a look at the possible combination of a new look partnership and see how they deliver. I agree. Beating Union Gold reckons 69-0 to the Boks. And 208 says killer front row and backline. Christian says Lowe is back from injury already. That's good. Thought we'd only see him next year. Yeah, so they already said that he was coming good, basically, and they were hoping that he was going to be involved earlier than what they thought. And I think that it's they weren't going to rush him, but they were cautiously optimistic that he might be able to make a return before this year. So really, really good to see that he has made that recovery and that he is going to be involved this weekend. From a Lions fan point of view, not massively excited about that. He could definitely come back next week. But from Bok point of view, it is good to see that he is back and fit, and hopefully he can get up some form and get back into the mix next year. But yeah, I think for me, the players that will be interesting to watch, obviously, very keen to see how Franco Moster continues to go. A lot of speculation about him. I thought he was very good against Wales. Not against Wales, against Japan. Obviously, we're kind of robbed of seeing him properly against Italy. If we look at the back line, very keen to see how centers go. Kane Moody at 11. We've only really seen him mostly at 14. Similarly with Ethan Hooker swapping the 11 for the 14 jersey. Very keen to see the Morne van den Berg, Sash Fami Mazuli combination. And then opportunities for, your Zach Portons, your Asanatis, your Ben Jason Dixons. Those are your fringe players. Bongi Manambi is someone who's got a point to prove. And I don't know how much points you can prove against this Welsh side. Like I said, I'll show you what the Welsh side situation is. And so, for example, if you go through the Welsh side, 1 through to 15, with regards to the amount of caps, Gareth Thomas got 43 caps, Dowie Lake with 25 caps. Cool. So that's reasonably experienced. Then Kieran Azarati with 18 caps, Ben Carter, 13 caps, Rhys Davies, 3 caps, Tane Plumtree, 10 caps, Alex Mann, 10 caps, Aaron Wainwright, 61 caps. Those are basically all your experienced players. Your backline players, for example, Kieran Hart, 27 caps, Dan Edwards, 6 caps, Rio Dyer, 23 caps, Joel Hawkins, Joe Roberts, both 6 caps, Ellis Meath, 3 caps, Blaine Murray, 13 caps. That's the starting 15. You then look at the bench, and it gets a bit childish. You've got Brodie Coughlin, 1 cap. Danny Southworth, uncapped. Christian Coleman, 1 cap. So Zach Portland's playing, he's actually got more caps than the person he's going to be scrumming against. And, Danny Southworth is going to be scrumming against Astonati. He's uncapped. James Ratty from the Ospreys, 3 caps. Morgan Morse, 1 cap. Ruben Morgan Williams, 1 cap. Callum Sheedy, 16 caps. Ben Thomas, 16 caps. I mean, if we look at our bench, Kobus Reinach is going to make his 50th appearance off the bench. He has got 14 more caps than the entire Welsh bench. Odd. Maybe about 12 odd. I'm doing a quick maths here. 32, 33, 34, 37, 38, 39. 11 caps. He's got 11 caps more than the entire Welsh bench. Eben Etzebeth has 100 more. More than 100 more caps. That's what I'm talking about with regards to this Welsh side. Eben Etzebeth has more than 100 more caps than the entire Welsh bench. I'm pretty sure if you look at if you add up the starting 15, for example, for Wales, they're more than Eben, but not by much. If you were to put together an Eben and you don't even have to go. For example, Eben and Damon Delendi have more caps than the entire Welsh 23. They've got 250 odd caps. That's more than the entire Welsh 23 for this weekend. That's the difference that we're looking at. That's the massive difference between these two. Smanga says, who hasn't played that was part of the squad for the Autumn Nations? I suppose it's just Ntutuka Tsunu, who's obviously joined quite late. He's the only person who wouldn't have featured at all throughout the Autumn Nations series. Evan says, excited to see next year's alignment camp and experimentation. This is a good game to just play and build confidence. Malabonga says 2026 is going to be a very interesting, especially in the forwards. Could Visa and Kwagga take a backseat for the likes of Lowe, Hanekom, and Augustus? I don't think Jasper Visa is taking a backseat absolutely anywhere. I think if Jasper Visa had played a full international season, he could have been World Player of the Year standards. I rate him so highly. So, and also next year, we've got no, we've got a bit of time to experiment, but we don't really, in terms of if you want to win the Nations Championship, you've got to try and, we've got to beat the three in the middle, got to beat England, Scotland, Wales, and then we've got the Great Rivalry Tour. So we're not going to be rotating there at all. We're going to be playing we might rotate, but we're not going to be experimenting. We're not going to sit there and say, right, let's give a couple guys a debut against the All Blacks unless there were injuries. Dorian says, I saw a remark that the Wales bench looks more like a soccer formation. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Matthew says 7-1 split is just Rassie showing the world that there's been way too much noise in that Palm squad. Food for thought for Mr. Matt Williams. I think it's just because literally those are all the backs in the squad. They're in the 23. There was always going to be a 7-1 split. I said it yesterday, and somebody said, "No, go look at this team. You're wrong." Well, I wasn't completely correct, but the 7-1 split part was the main emphasis, and that was correct because it had to be a 7-1 split. That's what we spoke about last night in our live show. We said it had to be a 7-1 split, and we were right. Because we hadn't seen any official information that other players had joined the squad and the likes of that. So 91% of people have said that they like the team. My question here is this game worthwhile? Simple yes, no. I mean, I reserve judgment until the game itself, but I think if we go and win 70, 80, 90 to few, then I'm not entirely convinced. For example, I'm a Lions fan. I like the fact that we're not facing. That's probably the only saving grace for me is that this means that there's no Wilco Low, Ruan Okia, Gerard Stennekamp, Johan Grabela, Kenan Moody. They're not playing for the Bulls this weekend. At the same time, as a Lions fan, I really wanted to have Kazanati back this weekend. Obviously, he's got his hearing coming up, and that must be in the next week or two, would be my guess. But yeah, I think that's my biggest problem. It's not a worry about the box side. I just think if we go and put 80, 90 points on Wales, is that worth, is it worth it? And I think if you ask the Wales fans, they're fuming. They are absolutely fuming. And if there's any Wales fans in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But what I've seen, for example, is that the Welsh fans are not happy. They're saying that this is a pointless exercise. They're going to put out a young team. And, everyone says, oh, but it's experience. But I don't think being absolutely massacred by the best team in the world is experience. Yes, maybe you start to understand what international rugby is all about. But you're talking about a squad that has been absolutely kicked down. I mean, they've won one game in the last 7 or 8 or something. I think it was they were on a 10-game losing streak before they lost before they beat Japan. So it's a side completely devoid of confidence. If you go look at their results, and this kind of really lays bare how bad they've been. I thought they played well last week against New Zealand, but again, 13 odd players have left that squad. But 52-26 against New Zealand, 24-23 winning against Japan, 52-28 versus Argentina. They beat Japan in July, but before that, Japan beat them 24 points to 19. England 68, Wales 14, Scotland 35 to Wales 29. Ireland 27 to Wales 18. Italy beat Wales 22-15. France beat Wales 43-0. We beat them 45-12. Australia beat them 52-20 before that. Fiji beat them last year. Australia beat them before that. I mean, you really have to go back quite a while before you see some decent positive Wales results. And that's where Wales are. And that's a Wales side we can pick the better players. This is not a Welsh side that's been absolutely gutted by players not available. So that's my biggest problem with this game. It's not the fact that we're playing an extra game. I mean, we were playing against a Fiji with all their players, for example, and this is the team. I'd be very chuffed. But with our opposition that we're playing against, I just don't think it's fair in Wales. I think it's a stupid decision from the Welsh Rugby Union to be having this game itself, given the situation that they find themselves in. Dia says, would you be keen on doing a back/forwards ranking, almost like an end-of-year grading? Yeah, that's what we're going to do next year. So next we're going to be doing a lot of wrap-up content. We're going to be doing our Springbok team of the year. Going to come out on Monday. We're going to be doing power rankings. We're going to be doing a depth chart, looking at exactly where we are. We're going to be doing a barometer on the World Cup squad next week. So we've got a lot of that stuff to do. And yeah, maybe we'll do a couple of them as live shows and kind of, I'll do my dream team. Maybe that's a good idea. I think I'll do my dream team and then we'll do a show on pick your dream team. And we'll kind of pick who was our best loose head, who was our best hooker, who was our best tight head, who was, what was our best performing, our dream team, like the World Rugby dream team. So we can do that as a live show as well. Lawrence says, Steve, you come over to Oz for World Cup. You have a place to stay in Brisbane. Safari will look after you over here. Love that. Thank you so much, Lawrence. We literally might take you up on that offer. We're busy doing our budgeting for that Australia trip, and it is expensive over there. But we're going to make sure we try and get over there. We are busy looking at partners and having conversations to try and make sure we can get that side. I absolutely love my time in France. I mean, France itself as a country was really cool. Watching the rugby was cool, but it was the fans that made it. Going and meeting subscribers and people who are part of the community was incredible. I think Australia would be a bit different. Obviously, in France, a lot of people came over from the UK and Ireland and the likes, and Scotland, a lot of SAF population across there. And I think it's a bit more accessible from a SAF point of view, traveling up to Paris and the likes of that. I'll be interested to see how many we'll see in Australia. But we're going to have lots of plans. We're going to be reaching out to content creators over the next year to try and set up stuff for the World Cup to make sure we've got kind of like extra content that we're going to do that side. Hopefully run into a couple of the big pundits and the likes of that. So big plans, people. Big plans. And Contender says, do you think that if worse comes to worse, could we see Kwagga Smith at wing and the emergence of another full hybrid player from Rassie? So Kwagga Smith actually made his debut for the Lions at wing. Fun fact. So he is very much an option at wing. He's done it before. And he might have to do it again. And Gareth said, Sia can move to 8 if need be and shuffle Visa maybe at 4, 6, 7. Yeah, I mean, I think in that regard, you can put Franco Moss at 5 if you had to. But I mean, we've got a lock option on the bench. But yeah, so if you have to replace Ruan Nokia, then you've got Franco Moss who goes to 5. You've then got Ben Jason Dixon can come on at 7. You could have if Jasper Visi gets injured, for example, then you probably go Sia Khaleesi at 8. We got Kwagga Smith at 8, and anyway. So, yeah, I mean, forwards is not an issue at all. There's basically, especially the loose forwards, isn't the like-for-like replacement. The only person on the bench that there's no like-for-like replacement on the bench is Ruan Nokia, but you got Franco Mostert in a starting lineup. So we're pretty well set with regards to our options and our replacement options and the likes of that. So we're going to you get there in the day. We're going to wrap it up there. Ricardo asking, do you think Nino Buzz came back for the World Cup? I think that there's probably a higher chance he does than he doesn't at this stage. Kid says, Doc Craven said tight head is the most important position. Rassie said, okay, in that case, I'll pick 3. And Jacques says, yeah, I can't argue with that. This backline's powerful to say the least. Well, thank you very much for jumping on. And we will see you guys all on Saturday for the watch along. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got Lions versus Bulls before that, so you guys can come and join me. I'm going to be in my Lion shirt for that. Got to get that out and dust it off after a month. But yeah, please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching.